Constantine Oberto immigrated to the United States from northern Italy at the turn of the century. He settled in Seattle and founded the Oberto Sausage Company in 1918. The company used traditional family recipes to make high-quality, handmade Italian meat products from a small factory on Dearborn Street, near where the Goodwill building is today. Constantine died suddenly in September of 1943 and left the company to his 16-year-old son, Art Oberto. Art was still a student at West Seattle High School, too young to drive. So he rode his bicycle from home to school and the factory every day to keep things going until he graduated and was able to devote all his attention to the company. In 1954, Art built a factory on Rainier Avenue, and he and his new wife Dorothy moved into a small house next door to be close to the business. Art believed strongly that the most important members of the community were its children, because children represent the future. Putting his money where his mouth was, Art began sponsoring Pee Wee football and Little League baseball teams that played at the Rainier Playfield. The first racing vehicle that Art sponsored was his nephew Gary Oberto's soapbox derby car in 1971. In 1975, Seafair was $75,000 in debt and announced that they were considering canceling the Seafair race. When Art heard the news, he wrote an impassioned letter to the Seattle Times, saying that it was important to save the hydros for the kids because hydroplane racing was such an important event to the children of Seattle. Cairo Radio and TV came up with the idea of holding a Save Our Hydros telethon that was simulcast on their radio and TV stations. Art Oberto came to the station to personally deliver a large check that he had pledged. There were a number of hydroplanes displayed in the Cairo parking lot. Among them was Bob Murphy's unsponsored red and white Allison-powered U4. When the U4's driver, Bill Worster, saw Art leave the telethon, he approached Art and began pitching a sponsorship. Art was hooked and agreed to sponsor the boat for Tri-Cities, Seattle, and San Diego. Bill Worster and Chuck Hickling shared the driving duties, and their best finish was a 7th place in the 1975 Gold Cup. With Oberto's continued sponsorship in 1976, Worster bought the boat and suggested to Art that they change the U number from U4 to U8, so that when TV announcers mentioned the boat, it would sound like they were saying U8 Oberto. The new team was able to grab 4th place in San Diego. For 1977, Worster bought a new boat and equaled his best finish from the previous year, with another 4th place in San Diego. Unfortunately, Bill suffered a serious heart attack shortly after the race and had to permanently retire from driving. In 1978, Bill campaigned with Bob Mashmet behind the wheel. The team featured an all-girl crew. In the late 70s, this was radical thinking, and the unique crew gathered media attention wherever they raced. Their best finish was a 5th at San Diego. Oberto sat out the 1979 season but returned for 3 races in 1980 with Steve LaCava driving. Again, their best race was San Diego, where they captured 5th place. The team upgraded again in 1981, running a Rolls-Royce Merlin engine in the Ron Jones-designed U-95 hull. Scott Pierce stepped into the cockpit and drove the boat to a 4th place in national high points. Worster landed a major national sponsor for 1982. So Scott Pierce and the Oberto sponsorship moved to Fred Leland and his brand new U-55. It was a difficult season, with the best finish being an 8th place in Tri-Cities. Oberto took 1983 off, but they returned to the sport in 1984 with Scott Pierce and John Prevost sharing the driving duties in the U-55. 1985 saw a new team and another driver. Jerry Hopp drove Bill McFadden's U4 at 9 races, capturing a couple of 3rd-place finishes along the way and claiming 5th place in national high points. George Johnson took over the helm in 1986, and the team struggled to a 12th place in national points. In 1987, Oberto switched to Jim Harvey's Jim Lucero-designed U2 cabover with George Woods behind the wheel. The new Oberto was almost doomed before it made its first race, when a disastrous fire destroyed the team's truck and all of their motors and tools. The team rebounded to a third-place finish in the 1987 Seafair Budweiser Cup. And earned Oberto 2 victories in 1988, winning in Miami and San Diego, on their way to a third place in national high points. The Oberto also earned a spot in boat racing history, as it led the field into Turn 2 of Heat 2A in San Diego, and 2 trailing boats blew over backwards in the one and only side-by-side flip in unlimited hydroplane racing history. In 1990, Mark Tate took over the Oberto's driving duties. 1990 was a unique year, with the Oberto running a Merlin in the saltwater races in Miami and San Diego, and a turbine at all of the freshwater races. In 1991, Oberto sponsored both Ed Cooper's U3 and Bill Wurster's backup U24. Mitch Evans drove the U3 and Todd Yarling drove the U24. In 1993 and 94, Oberto stuck with Wurster's backup boat, now the renumbered U-75 and driven by Mike Ekert. The effort came to a spectacular end when the boat blew over and was destroyed while attempting to qualify for the 1994 race in Tri-Cities. Oberto sat out the next 5 years, but returned to racing by sponsoring the U6 Miss Madison team at the 2000 Tri-Cities race. Nate Brown drove the boat to 2/3 and a 4th to claim 6th place in national high points. In 2001, Steve David took over the cockpit and won in Madison, Indiana. All in all, David would drive for the team for 13 years and win 15 races and 4 national championships, while providing the Oberto team with some of the most exciting memories in racing, including landing an amazing 360-degree somersault in Doha, Qatar, on the way to winning the 2009 national championship. And a bone-jarring collision in the 2011 Madison race. After the 2011 accident, John Zimmerman filled in for one race in Detroit. Steve David retired at the end of the 2013 season and was replaced by popular Jimmy Shane. Shane added 2 more national championships to the Oberto record, along with back-to-back Gold Cups in 2014 and 2015. Following the successful 2015 season, Oberto scaled back their racing program and sponsored Eric Elstrom and Jean Theoret for 2 races in 2016. In a love affair with the sport that has now lasted 42 years, Art and the Oberto Company have sponsored 12 different unlimited hydroplanes for 8 different owners with 18 different drivers. They have won 22 races, 7 national championships, and 2 Gold Cups. But in spite of all of the success, the team has never lost sight of the one single most important goal. We're doing it for the kids. On behalf of all the kids, that have grown up on the shores of countless racecourses across America watching the Oberto Hydroplane race. We want to give Art Oberto and the amazing Oberto race team a heartfelt thank you.